Welcome, I'm Maya Chowdhry and I'm your guide through this video series on digital participatory theatre. In this third chapter, we will be exploring who is the audience and how can they participate by looking at digital methods, tools, techniques and processes for participating with a range of audiences. At the beginning of any participatory project, it's important to consider where your audience resides, both in the physical and digital world, to evaluate how you might design the participation with your group. In addition to considering the types of participation possible through the different digital platforms, you need to consider where the audience would be accessing the piece and with what devices. As with any participatory theatre, it's important to consider the needs of the participants and also their digital needs. Is the digital platform accessible to your group? What devices do they have? Do they have Wi-Fi, a smartphone, laptop, or a webcam? And so think about inclusion. Is there a version of your piece that the audience can engage with if they don't have all of these digital platforms and devices? Also consider the features of the platform that allow different types of participation: digital whiteboard, breakout rooms, number of users on a video call. So consider both the subject matter, the aim of the project, and the chosen audience when designing for your participants. Think about how your choice of media is both appropriate production method as well as an engagement tool for your audience. For Ethical People Movement, I was creating a campaign video and decided an organisation such as the fictional Ethical People Movement would host their video on a popular platform such as YouTube. So the choice of digital platform was both appropriate to the story I was telling, as well as for the audience I was targeting. And with YouTube, you can decide to turn your comments on for a particular video, allowing further interaction with your audience. Some audiences reside on YouTube and like commenting on videos and engaging in the live chat, and some do not. So research your group thoroughly and choose appropriately. YouTube is the most popular video platform. Audiences are more familiar with it than, say, Vimeo, and you get more features on the free version of YouTube. Although a disadvantage of YouTube is the adverts at the beginning of a video. Audience or participant, should we use these interchangeably? An audience is a group of people who participate in a show or encounter a work of art, such as literature, in which they're called readers, theatre, music, in which they're called listeners, video games, in which they're called players, or academics in any medium. In order to view or experience a theatre piece, an audience participates in some way, even if it's only to listen, look at, and then digest the piece. There is a spectrum of participation, and in constructing your digital participatory theatre piece, you'll want the audience to participate in different ways throughout the piece. Let's have a look at our case study project that accompanies this video, The Delegation by Coney. In Coney's digital performance, The Delegation, the message, or rather the gesture, as Tassos Stevens, the director, puts it, was from people from the UK and from Russia to meet and to reflect on how each of our societies are doing right now. The form used is a digital game, and the mediums used include a theatrical performance on Zoom, video conferencing platform, interactivity during the video performance, for example, audience members finding and displaying physical objects from the audience's actual room, and a game introduced through an interactive website. This was a digital-born participatory piece, and the digital media used really embraced the form of the piece. For example, the piece was in English and Russian, and subtitles were used in the digital performance, and there was also a Russian version of the website that worked as a game engine for the piece. These aspects could have been part of a live participatory performance, but they were suited to this digital method. The Delegation is a project that was designed for a theatre festival that had to pivot online and for two groups of audiences from the UK and Russia. As Tassos from Coney says in his video, I don't like using the word digital to define a project, but rather to try to recognise what it is that the digital is doing specifically. Audience agency is where a participant intentionally performs an action that causes something to change within a performance. The types of participation can range from reactive, answering a question, to interactive, completing a task, to proactive, some kind of self-initiated action. Think about how much participation is required. Do you want your audience creatively contributing to and even co-creating the work? It's important for the audience that this is genuine. For example, there is an opportunity to choose which section of the narrative happens next. Is this a real choice for the audience? Will it have an impact in another part of the piece? If it's not, an audience could feel manipulated and that they have not really contributed. So are the audience a spectator or, as in forum theatre, a spectator? Consider also the size of your audience. In the Delegation, the audience for each show was 50, 25 people from each country. Coney designed the participation with this in mind, thinking about a role groups of that size could play and what would fit with them being from two countries. Thus, Coney chose the idea of delegations meeting at a hotel as the concept for this piece. Tassos says, it also felt interesting because the people in a delegation rarely have any real power. The big decision makers are elsewhere. Hence, the performance would be an apt vehicle to explore this subject matter. Coney's The Delegation aimed for a deeper level of audience participation than, say, interacting with an audience on a video game platform, and so had a much smaller audience on a Zoom video conferencing call, allowing for individual interactions with participants on the digital theatre piece. In The Delegation, Tassos Stevens sums this up very well when he says you also need to allow the audience the choice to not participate at times. The way this is achieved in The Delegation, which takes place in a fictional hotel, is that in the video conferencing platform, the audience member may turn off the camera at any point, and this equates to shutting your hotel door and just being inside the room. There's also a section where the audience needs a passcode to get into a particular room in the game, but the code doesn't work and security ejects them. Coney says, some of our audience will discover this and will be desperate now to find the passcode to enter the Diamond Suite. Some won't find this or won't even try if they do. It's important to remember that audiences play differently. He also says there are sections in the piece where the performers play officials of the delegation and also guests. This is an opportunity for the audience to sit back and listen as an audience rather than playing actively. In digital participatory theatre, it may be more difficult for some of these self-initiated actions to occur within the confines of the digital platform. For example, in The Delegation, you can turn off your camera, but unless you have some video effects software built in, you're not able to change your video in any impactful way. In some instances, there may be more choices with digital platforms than with a live participatory theatre piece in a specific location, or choices that allow for different types of audience interaction. For example, the proximity of the theatre group to the audience can be varied. Some digital platforms allow for many types of participation that may not happen in live performance. Audience members may feel more confident to comment in a text chat on a video call, as opposed to speaking out in a rehearsal room. Although in a rehearsal room, you can also design participation to facilitate this. A post-it note poster for comments is one example. As Tassos sums up the audience experience in The Delegation, we can design to leave a space in which these experiences can happen, an openness for audience to play how they want. So to summarise in this video, We've explored who is the audience for your theatre piece and how can they participate. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video on what are the production methods for digital participatory theatre.
Hello, thanks for being here with my recorded self. I'm Tassos Stevens and I'm one of Coney. Coney are a company who make all kinds of play, interactive and immersive and participatory theatre, adventures and games, all play designed to spark positive change. We're often using digital platforms as part of our projects in order to be able to connect and play with audiences and participants wherever they are. I don't like using the word digital to define a project, but rather try to recognise what it is that the digital is doing specifically. For the project I'm talking about here, Delegation, we use digital platforms, especially Zoom, to be able to bring together in play two audiences who are geographically remote to each other. One group of playing audience primarily from the UK, the other group of playing audience primarily from Russia. The Delegation was commissioned for Coney from the Access Point Festival, a theatre festival in Russia. The festival had pivoted online during the pandemic, and they had approached me first to do a lecture on interactive theatre in Zoom and on Facebook Live, which incredibly reached an audience of over 23,000. And later to do again a workshop on Zoom for 20 theatre makers from all over Russia, the nearest to me being in Minsk, 3,000 kilometers away, the furthest being another 9,000 kilometers away, just north of Vladivostok in Siberia, near the Pacific coast. Russia was big, really big. There was an incredible moment in the workshop where we were all playing the game Grandmother's Footsteps, adapting it for Zoom. Normally you play that game with a big group of people in one room, all creeping forward to be the first person to touch the person playing Grandma on their shoulder. Here we were all in our own rooms, creeping forward to be the first person to touch our laptop camera. And we're playing this over 12,000 kilometres. That geographical connection is remarkable. The festival wanted to commission a piece from Coney, and the starting point was to think about what is the thing that we can only do here, which I think is a very useful question always to be asking yourself. What is the only thing you can do in this context, because that makes it special? And that thing here was to be able to bring audiences together from two different countries with two different languages to meet each other and play together. There's a very useful term coined by Ned Glazier, director of Company 3, of the gesture of a piece. The gesture is what is really happening in the encounter between the people who are making it and the people who are playing it. If you strip away all the fiction and the action that happens in that encounter. If the gesture is meaningful and resonates, then you are building your piece on a solid foundation. Here, the gesture was for people from the UK and from Russia to meet and to reflect on how each of our societies are doing right now, and to be immersed in each other's languages too. This is a piece played in both Russian and English. The festival then asked me to come up with a concept. I knew that we would need to be able to accommodate up to 50 playing audience, 25 from each of the two countries, simply so that there was enough ticket revenue for the festival. So I was looking then for a role that groups of that size of around 25 could play, which would fit with them being from two countries. And the idea sprang about delegations, delegations where officials, diplomats and business people represent their country to make a deal with another country. This also felt interesting because the people in a delegation rarely have any real power. The big decision makers are elsewhere. Where would this happen? Now, when you're playing, but especially online, it's great to imagine the place you are as if you were somewhere else. So everyone in a Zoom call is in their own room. And that reminds me of a hotel. If we look at the Zoom call in gallery view, it's like someone has sliced a hotel in two, all these rooms on top of each other. And so we imagined a hotel somewhere between the UK and Russia, that would have welcomed the delegation as guests if they were meeting in person, but that because of the pandemic, people wouldn't be able to travel, and so the hotel reinvents itself online like so many businesses. Everyone stays where they are, but the room, wherever you are, it plays your hotel room. Let's imagine you're playing, and I'm going to talk through the journey of your experience from start to finish. This is a very useful thing to do whenever you're trying to describe this kind of work, a pitch of the journey. It gives a concrete framework for the listener to imagine and to hang their thoughts off. So our experience of any piece of work starts when we first hear about it, and it only stops if and when we stop thinking and talking about it. With the delegation, it would start when you first read about it online. Let's say that you're in Liverpool, in the UK, and you decide it sounds interesting, so you book a ticket with Coney. You're told to expect an email from the hotel, and the day before, the concierge of the hotel is in touch with a link for you to open and follow. This is part of what we term the advance of the experience, what happens in advance of your arriving to play. Through this link, you're told about the hotel and asked to pick a number. This is the number of your hotel room. Say you're in room 113. You're asked to pick a book, a big fat book, and place it by your bedside to play the Gideon Bible that you often find in hotel rooms, and to check that your minibar is stocked with drinks. We're inviting you to play the game of hotel, and everyone knows how to play this because it's such a familiar experience to stay in a hotel. You're then told a little about the delegation, asked for your favourite word in your language. My favourite word in English is elbow, and we'll encourage you to swap words with fellow delegates as an icebreaker for getting across the language barrier, which is real because many people in Russia don't speak any English at all. And the English's ability for Russian is, well, yes. So we ask you to sum up your philosophy to diplomacy to get you ready for the game of diplomatic negotiation you'll be playing. Mine is play to play well, don't play to win. And we ask you to pick a couple of pieces of culture, including a song that represents the UK right now. My choice of song is Ghost Town by The Specials, for instance. All of these asks are invitations to play, openly and however you choose, the game of being a delegate for the UK, representing the UK, staying in a hotel. It's the night of the performance and you arrive in Zoom. I'm there to greet you as the concierge, together with 4 officials of the delegations, your performers, 2 for the UK and 2 for Russia. These are our performers. And there's the rest of the audience from the UK and from Russia. We ask you to change your Zoom name so that you have your country, your room number, and depending on whether your number is odd or even, you're assigned to the north of your country with an odd number or the south of your country with an even number. You're in room 113, an odd number, so you're the north of the UK. For your team, as it were. You're in Liverpool, after all. And so you might put UK, North, your name, and then 113. And we explain that when your video is on in Zoom, it's like you're in the hotel lounge. But if you turn your video off, then you've shut the door to your hotel room, which is played by the room wherever you are. You're welcome to do this at any time, to be by yourself and not play and not have to talk to other people. And this is really important in participation design. You have to give people an easy way to choose freely not to participate and without feeling judged by other people. With this free, non-judgy way not to play, you give a level of safety and trust, which means that people are actually probably more likely to participate and play. So, in the delegation, we also give you a link you can open to find yourself in the conference centre next to the hotel. And we tell you that you're free to explore anywhere except the Diamond Suite. Let's see what happens if you try. I need a passcode. And the security guard's getting antsy. Oh, and now they've thrown me out. Some of our audience will discover this and will be desperate now to try to find the passcode to enter the Diamond Suite. Some won't find this, some won't even try. It's important to remember that different people in an audience play very differently. Later, you're told that the real decision makers, the real power brokers, the one who you adjust the delegates for, They are meeting the Diamond Suite, which makes some players even more desperate to get inside. We play 3 days and nights in the fiction over the course of about 2 hours for real. Each evening in the fiction, people can meet and chat in the bar. We make breakout rooms in smaller groups. Each night time, you're given a link to listen to inside your hotel room. And each day, you're playing a game of diplomacy, where one delegation chooses how to divide a number of points and makes an offer to the other delegation, who then choose whether to accept the offer or reject it. So, say you're UK North, and you have to decide how to divide 9 points of Russia North. Perhaps you'll keep 5 and offer them 4. If they accept, that's the points you both get, 5, 4. But if they reject the offer, then you'll both get 0. So, how many do you need to offer them to be sure that they'll accept? This is a very simple negotiation game, but it has a rich complexity as you play. And it's deliberately quite abstract. You're just playing for points, but you're never told what these represent. But players would decide for themselves what they meant and find ways to subvert the game. The performers, as well as playing the officials, also each played another character, a guest expert presenting a seminar on their specialist subject, so helping create the atmosphere of a conference. But these also gave opportunities for audiences to sit back and listen as audience rather than playing actively. Offering a variety of different modes of play across the experience means you have more to offer a wider range of audience. And 2 seminars happened simultaneously, one in English and one in Russian. These seminars all had a facade, so the subject being talked about was not really what was going on. For instance, one of the UK seminars was on the surface about the history of Northern Soul music, but hidden inside a recording that the presenter gave you was a reflection on the role of empire and the systemic racism of the British state. Thematically, everything inside the experience was a facade, and when some players found their way inside the Diamond Suite, bribing the hotel staff perhaps to discover the passcode, they would find that the Diamond Suite was empty. Wherever the power brokers are, it's not here. The real decision makers, perhaps it's you all along. There was a chance for the audience to call out with this discovery of the empty Diamond Suites, and if they did, then the performers admit that yes, it's empty, but is this like reality? Or is this just play and make-believe? Perhaps then, both UK and Russian audiences would talk about what was going on for them where they were. But what remains most memorable for me is the space that players found for themselves to make meaningful action. One performance ended in a dance party to S Club 7 and the Russian song Young Lenin. One performance ended where both delegations spontaneously self-organised a protest in solidarity with victims of the state in both countries, deciding to leave their Zoom screens as an empty room for 1 minute silence. And one performance where an elderly audience member in Tasmania showed a photo album to the Russians of when she had herself travelled to Russia in the 1980s to visit her brother. These were all, in their own way, extraordinary moments, and we can't design for these as theatre makers, but we can design to leave a space in which they can happen, an openness for audience to play how they want, and room for different intentions to be expressed. I'm minded of my Jedi Master, Bernie de Koven, the guru of games and play, talking about a set of swings, and how swings don't tell you how to play, you discover that for yourself. I think ideally we're building swings and playgrounds for audiences to take part inside and express their own agency and how they want to play. And here in Delegation, these are also the moments where our 2 audiences from the UK and Russia truly met each other.